So we're making a strawberry rhubarb crisp. So in order to do this, what you've got to do is you've got to cut up all your fruit, so the strawberries and the rhubarb. You've got to feed some to your dog because she's super adorable.
Good sit, Nina. Good sit.
Only feed the strawberries, don't feed the rhubarb. Then you add sugar and orange zest, as well as making a slurry out of cornstarch and orange juice. The way I chose to do it in the measuring cup was not effective. Definitely put it in a bowl first. The cornstarch is going to thicken up with the juices of the fruit as it's cooking and make that nice consistency. Then just put it in your dish and prep the crumble part, which is just flour, oats, brown sugar, and salt. You just mix that together and then you start adding butter. So I'm using the macadamia butter here, but you can use Earth Balance, or if you eat butter, just regular butter. You see it gets kind of sticky and crumbly. This is perfect. Then you just pour it on top of your fruit and pop it in the oven.
Okay. Hi. I don't think I've said hello yet. It's Thursday night, and I have put a rhubarb crisp in the oven. Doing a little bit of reading. This is When Things Fall Apart, Heart Advice for Difficult Times by Pema Chodron. And she's written a bunch of books, but this is the one that I'm reading right now, and it's just really beautiful and pointed. And if you're ever interested in Buddhism at all, I would recommend this book. I have been writing all over it. I feel like it has been just reframing a lot of things for me. One of the major things that has been feeling unsettling lately has been the uncertainty of the times. And this book posits that actually uncertainty is living. Like, where's this quote that I wanted to share? This. Things falling apart is kind of a testing and also kind of a healing. We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem, but the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. Then they come together and fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, room for relief, room for misery and for joy. And letting there be room for not knowing is the most important thing of all. This is really resonating with me. I'm definitely somebody who pushes against uncertainty. I'm definitely someone who prefers stability and routine. I'm somebody who likes to have a plan. And so when I'm faced with uncertainty, I don't like it. I'm very resistant to it. It's upsetting to me. I try and avoid it. And this book is giving me an option, just maybe acknowledging that there's more than one option, that I don't have to avoid it, that it doesn't have to be a bad thing, that I don't have to think of uncertainty as the enemy. When Things Fall Apart, I highly recommend it. I'm halfway through it. Probably gonna finish the rest of it tomorrow morning. I'm gonna check on my crumble, my rhubarb strawberry crumble. It's my very favorite dessert. And I'll check in with you later. I'm probably just gonna watch a movie and knit tonight. So, all right, talk to you tomorrow.
This is Audible.
Audible Studios presents The Sympathizer, written by Viet-Thanh Nguyen, narrated by François Chow.
Okay, so now we're gonna bake bread. First, what you need to do is you need to activate your yeast in warm water. The first time I did this, I actually messed it up. So the one you're seeing didn't actually turn out and I had to do it a second time. But what you have to do is make sure that the water is in between 90 degrees and 110 degrees. And every time I go closer to that 110, anything over 100 tends to kill my yeast. So I went closer to that 90 degrees the second time. I also, the second time, added sugar, which helps feed the yeast. Then you just combine your flour and your salt, and the recipe told me to do this by hand, which is why I'm not using my mixer. And you make a little well and add the bubbling and frothy yeast mix. This part is really sticky, so if you actually wet your hand in water beforehand, it'll help a little bit. But as you can see, it's still totally stuck to my hand. And if it is looking too dry, which mine was at first, it wasn't completely coming together, you just add a little bit of water, a tablespoon at a time, until it is a nice tacky sticky dough. It should pull off the sides but still be fully formed as a ball. Kind of got to use your best judgment here, and as this is the first official loaf of bread I'm making outside of focaccia, I was just winging it. So cover it in cling wrap, cover it in a tea towel, and then you let it sit for 2 hours and it proves for that amount of time. So this is the first prove and it's going to double in size.
I wanted to talk to you about the Asianreadathon, which I will be participating in this month. And I also wanted to show you what I've been up to. So I did sort of a spring cleaning of the house this morning, which was really fun. I did a little bit of reading last night, which I think I showed you, and maybe even some knitting. I'm baking bread right now. It's proving. There's just lots going on at the moment. These are my little plant babies that I am attempting to propagate. I actually might need to change the water on this. It's getting a little cloudy. And then this is my attempt at propagating a fiddle leaf fig. Who knows how that'll go. What I want to talk to you about right now is the Asianreadathon. So May is Asian Heritage Month, and Read with Cindy has started the Asianreadathon for the month of May. It runs from May 1st through the 31st. She wrote this about it, and I just want to share really quickly.
The world is a little scary right now, especially for Asians. Let's show our support and understanding for each other by dedicating a month to reading Asian books. This is an online month-long reading marathon that is meant to be as easy and accessible for everyone. So you can find it on Twitter at asianreadathon. There's an announcement video which I will link below on her page. And she's collecting everything onto a playlist for the Asian Readathon by using the hashtag asianreadathon. So this video will have that hashtag. So there are 4 challenges, and they are as follows. The first challenge is to read any book by an Asian author. The second challenge is to read a book featuring an Asian character or written by an Asian author who you can relate to. Third is read a book featuring an Asian character or written by an Asian author who is different from you. And 4, read a book recommended by an Asian. So the other component is having each of your 4 books come from authors of different parts of Asia. So not reading all 4 books by Chinese authors or Japanese authors or Vietnamese authors, but trying to have each book come from a different place. So I want to share the 4 books I will be reading that fit this challenge, and then 2 bonuses. Yeah, 2 bonuses that I'm going to probably read this month anyway, just in honor of it, but I'll have already met my challenge quota, so this is just extra. And we have The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, and she is Japanese. And this is my read a book by an Asian author. And this is a Orwellian tale of things starting to disappear. Like it's a community of people who first forget toasters and then forget dishwashers and then start forgetting sort of larger things. Yeah, on an unnamed island off an unnamed coast, objects are disappearing. First hats, then ribbons, birds, roses, until things become much more serious. This is Severance by Ling, who is a Chinese-American author, and this book is about a pandemic or a big plague that hits, and I just felt that was very timely. So I'm excited to read it. Read a book featuring an Asian character or written by an Asian author who you can relate to, and the character is living through a pandemic. I am living through a pandemic. That feels very relational. That's how we are relating. So this is the second book I will be reading. Then, the third book I will be reading is To All the Boys I've Loved Before. And this is by Jenny Han, who is Korean American. And this lovely lady is in high school, and I have long since graduated high school. I did watch the Netflix series, and the Netflix films of this. I really enjoyed them. They were very sweet, so I'm excited to read it. I wanted sort of a lighter read, so I'm trying to do some dystopian post-apocalyptic stuff and some lighter stuff and some stuff that's just on par with current events, I guess. So here's this one. The Sympathizer by Viet Nguyen. And this I will be listening to as an audiobook. So I started this morning while I was cleaning the house. And it looks like I am in chapter 2 and I still have about 13 hours remaining on it. Viet Nguyen is Vietnamese. I am using this to cover my 4th challenge, which is read a book recommended by an Asian. So I actually had the immense honor of producing a community celebration with the Japanese American National Museum here in Los Angeles, and we had Viet Nguyen as our keynote speaker. So I got to not only produce the festival that had him speaking in it, but also listen to his gorgeous keynote speech. And actually you can listen to it too. It is linked below the video that we took from that day, and I would highly recommend it. It was incredibly powerful. The whole presentation, or the whole event, was centered around this idea of challenging borders, and so his speech speaks to that. In the process, this book was recommended to me by the people that I was working with, and then his speech in and of itself was just an inspiration enough to listen. Then I actually have 3 bonus books that I'm going to try and read this month, just keeping with the theme of Asian authors. So since I've read Little Fires Everywhere, I wanted to read Celeste and Ying's next book, which is Everything I Never Told You, or I think this is her first book. And Celeste is another Chinese American author, and I really liked Little Fires Everywhere, so I'm looking forward to reading this one. And then the book, I have only a couple of books off of my quarantine book stack that I haven't finished, and this is one of them, The Night Tiger, and this is by Yangtze Chu, and she is getting a lot of female authors, which I also really like. She is a Malaysian writer of Chinese descent, and so this is a book that I'm just going to throw into this challenge a little bit because it's already on my TBR and I want to give it a shout out. And then the last is, I haven't read Crazy Rich Asians yet, and I've been told that it's very fun and good. I did see the movie, and so instead of reading it, I have it on Audible. So Crazy Rich Asians on Audible, I will be reading that as well. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 6 books by authors who are Asian. A wide variety from Malaysian to Chinese to Vietnamese. I also have Jhumpa Lahiri's The Lowland, and I've read a couple of other books by Jhumpa Lahiri which I really enjoyed, and so she is Indian, and so we've got some South Asian in there as well. So that's 6 books. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 books? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sympathizer, Lowland, Crazy Rich Asians. That's 8 books. So I have 8 books doing double the challenge for this month, just because I have them and I figured why not read them during Asian Heritage Month, get a wide variety of perspectives. So I will keep updating you as I read them. I did get a couple more books. These are part of a book haul that I did that I will show you in the next video, but stay tuned. We're gonna do more bread things. I'll show you that. And then I'm gonna make a squash and leek pie for dinner tonight. So I'll show you that as well. So as you can see here, it's risen quite a bit and it's very sticky. So we're just gonna use a spatula, and while turning our bowl, pull it towards the center into a ball again. Then we're gonna cover it and do the same thing where we let it sit to prove. This one I let sit for 1.5 hours for the second prove. So while that was proving the second time, I figured I'd get started on dinner, which is going to be a squash kale leek pie. The recipe calls for a butternut squash, but I had a kabocha, so that is what we were using. I need help with the first cut. I just need you to. Kabocha squash is really difficult to cut and also known as the Japanese pumpkin. So just remove the seeds, cut it up. I think if it was a butternut squash, I would have peeled it first, but since it's a kabocha squash and it's a little bit harder skin, I just chose to boil it with the skin on and remove the skin afterwards. So just put it in a pot, cover it with water, add some salt, and boil it until it is soft. And while the kabocha is cooking, I started on the crusts of the pie. So this is just a water, olive oil, salt, and flour crust. Nothing too fancy here. So you just combine the dry ingredients, the flour, the salt, and then add the oil and add ice cold water, a tablespoon at a time, about 10 to 11 tablespoons of it. And eventually it'll sort of come together in a crumbly mixture. You can use your hand to form it into a ball. And then you let it sit for 30 minutes at room temperature. So here I am peeling the squash. Mashing it into delicious squash goodness. Then I'm gonna chop up some leeks. Leeks need to be cleaned pretty well. They are notoriously dirty. They have got a lot of dirt in their layers. Set them aside. Take the thick stem out of your kale and then chop it into pieces. Now heat up some oil. Add the leeks, get them goldeny. That's gonna take about 10 minutes. And this is the book I'm taking the recipe from, in Nonna's Kitchen. It's a book of recipes from Italian grandmothers, and I'm a quarter Italian, so it was a gift from my mother. So now you saute the kale, add the squash, cook that together for about 5 minutes. Then you want it to cool down, so I spread it out as much as possible. Next, we are going to roll out our dough. So put it in two, not quite halves. One is probably 2/3 to 1/3. The bigger one, you're gonna roll out to be the bottom crust. And you wanna make it big enough that it'll come over the bottom of the pan completely. So roll it on your rolling pin so that you can unroll it over your pan. And then just fix any weird areas and make it fit nicely. It can be rustic. This is rustic Italian grandmother cooking. So then you're going to fill the pie. Cover it with the smaller piece you have, and you're going to want to make a little seal with your fingers around the outside. Fold the dough over the larger pieces over the smaller pieces, and then pinch them with a fork so that they seal. Now, to let the air escape, you want to cut some slits. Ta-da! Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're just adding olive oil and flour to this bowl. It helps keep the bread from sticking. Just gonna dump it out. I took a spatula because it was so sticky. And you're gonna shape it. So you're gonna add some flour and you're just going to pull it into a little ball and squish it in the middle. And then just drop it in there. And you're gonna let it sit for another hour. So this is the last proof. And while it is sitting, you're gonna preheat the oven and let your Dutch oven heat. How does it look?
Beautiful.
Holy smokes.
Turn this off?
Yeah. That is bread. That is bread that I made. This is the very first loaf of bread I've ever made, so I'm super excited about it. Oh my gosh, do you hear that crust? It has air bubbles! The grand finale of the day was having a slice of this fresh homemade bread with some butter on top. It was pretty magical, and it just wrapped up a whole wonderful day of baking. Lots of baking, lots of reading, and a little bit of cleaning, a little bit of knitting. It's been a good day. It's gonna be a good weekend. So I hope you and yours are doing well. As always, please like and subscribe and comment, and I will catch you next time. All right, take care. I hope you're reading. Bye.